Joining me now is Anthony McCormick at this very difficult time. I appreciate your time today. Probably a silly question, but how are you holding up?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it was a pretty emotional morning, of course. And, what was interesting was after that, the Today Show this morning, I started to find out things about the Queensland Health Department that, I wasn't aware of. I wasn't following, any of this stuff back home in Canada, really. And as more and more came out, things like, the government had promised, these range of solutions to facilitate end of life care. I started to get quite angry during the middle part of the day here. Hopefully I didn't blow my lid too much in some of those interviews, but I really started to get angry because none of that was explained to me in any way, shape, or form. What I got back from Queensland Health, quite honestly, was, with the exception of, sort of one phone call, I think, and I initiated that, was, it was next to nothing substantial. Maybe they were doing whatever they were doing behind the scenes, but there was no satisfactory communication at all, in my opinion.
So, just to try to clarify that position, the indication we got from the Premier before was that all Queensland Health was waiting for was a New South Wales COVID test to come back negative, and then reading between the lines, then everything was fine. Were you ever told anything along those lines?
None of that was communicated with me. I had no idea what Queensland Health were doing, who they were talking to. New South Wales Health, on the other hand, were extremely communicative. I mean, they were ringing my hotel room multiple times a day. They had this plan presented to me before I even got on my flight to Australia. Now this, like, I've seen some of these responses, some of these headlines, and I got very upset by those. Like I said, in the middle part of the day, I'm just going to try and control myself a bit better now. But it is true that part of the requirements for getting the exemption to leave New South Wales was I had to reproduce a negative COVID test. So that reference is correct. And New South Wales were willing to do that. There was no problem. They made a little misstep, I think, here where it was supposed to have been done when I landed at the quarantine hotel. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And then when I spoke to them, they said, "Oh, well, what we're going to do, we're just going to wait to see if we can get confirmation from Queensland before we go ahead and do the swab." So, this was a small misstep. Rectifying it was very simple, and in my mind, it was next to a non-issue because it really wasn't the roadblock at all. Now, Queensland Health, if that's what they're citing, I called it horseshit in my last interview, because why did they close my case file without chasing up that COVID test? This is what no one's talking about. They closed the case file. No one, were they trying to get me to my mother? I mean, why didn't they pick up a phone and say, "Where is Anthony's COVID test?" And why did they close the file without getting an answer to that question? Why weren't they talking to me, telling me what was going on? Because I would have sorted that out quick smart. And that's why I'm really upset with this response. To be blaming the New South Wales government is just outrageous. I mean, I can't give them enough credit, for the experience that I had with them in my particular case.
So what we heard from the Premier was trying to say we needed this test and then we were ready to go, but you've been told by someone, can you just clarify that point? How were you informed your case file by this exemptions team was closed?
It was just by an email. And the email was very short and sweet. It just said, you've not been approved. You have to quarantine in the port of your arrival, and you're not permitted to fly to Queensland. And that was it. There could have been a million reasons behind the scenes as to how they got to executing that email, and I had no idea what it was. in these compassionate cases, they're complicated, they're nuanced, they need dialogue. Like, you need to be over communicating in these situations. And none of that was going on with that Queensland team. I mean, no one proactively called me at all in the entire process. I don't think I ever got a phone call from Queensland. When I landed in Sydney, I had to initiate the whole thing myself. And I was the one doing the phone calls, trying to find out what was going on.
It seems a complete lack of triaging as well when you talk about the urgency of your case. Anthony, what did you want to say to your mum?
Let's just talk about that quickly, because the first letter I sent in was your mum's prognosis is a couple of days to 2 to 3 weeks. That was that was the first one. Then I updated the files and in both systems, because the next letter I received, and I received during the flight on the way over, was your mother's being kept alive by blood transfusions until you can get here to see her, because this is her dying wish and she's trying to hang on.
Yeah, and it's just such a clear case of, if they're not going to show urgency on that, then what is the system doing? Which we'll keep asking. What did you, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to answer this, but what did you want to tell your mum if you got to see her?
Look, that's poor. That I love you, Mum. I haven't seen her in a number of years, unfortunately, and 1.5 of those was due to COVID, and this is part of her desperation to see me. And I really wish she had made it through to see that today show. She really wanted me to get on here and go to bat for her. She was furious, like she had to go through this, and why are dying people spending the last 4 days of their life wondering about this sort of stuff, getting agitated by it. Sort of more impactful, I think, than telling you, what would I say to my mother in a private moment is, the night that she died, Pete, my stepdad, gave her a kiss. She was out to, she was unresponsive. Then, so he left to go home, and then she had a turn, and she's woken up from that. She's bleeding. She can't breathe properly. She doesn't know what she's scared out of her mind, because she told me that already previously, and there's no one there for her to look at. It's just so devastating.
It is. We're really sorry for what you've gone through. Should be really proud of what you've raised here, at least, and to keep up the pressure on what clearly is a complete failure here, and a continuing one that's happened for a long time. Anthony, we're really sorry for your loss and how it's all happened, but thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks very much.